weapon. They tear so easily, and their bones break like twigs.
Probably the final of the Doom rants I have came up as of late, and this one is going to be a fucking doozy. This one is going to involve the ever so lovable complex lore that is involved with Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and soon to be Doom the Dark Ages, and Hugo Martin's unnecessary reasoning of trying to tie everything together as if it's some shitty Marvel Cinematic Universe slop. Oh my god, Fourth Snake, I said the S word. Please forgive me, for I have sinned. What caused me to actually do this rant, you might ask? Well, there is a channel that I sometimes follow, not all the time, because number one, they're basically a dark side filled detractor, which is nothing unusual, but the main inspiration of this channel is that it is a group of people who basically take under the helm of Sons of Miyazaki, as if the last time there was a similar brand, but with Hideo Kojima, and that went about as well, Review Tech USA trying to clone on Phil when he himself is no better. There are no winners in that situation, only losers. There was a video from them that I actually saw, and I actually decided to watch it because I was somewhat intrigued on the whole debacle whenever DSP made his points about how he didn't like Eternal, he liked 2016 better, and that he's not going to bother playing Doom the Dark Ages, even though he actually has been playing games on PC. He even did a Dark Souls mod, which is whatever. I'm not going to really get into that, but he seems to be somewhat improving in his setup compared to how he used to do shit, but the fact that people want to get on his ass for essentially having a take that a lot of other people would have is pretty funny. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say that DSP is right in a lot of things, because, let's be honest, he's not really right about a lot of things, but there is also such a thing as a broken clock is right twice a day. And you don't need to have a rainy fund to establish a fundraiser for such a rainy event, Mr. Burnell. I'm not going to keep this centered around PP Burnell himself, because obviously I don't want to attract too much attention from that autistic sphere, but rather just the whole point in general about the whole Doom lore and why it's just fucking unnecessary. The lore, if you even want to call it, or the simplified story explained in text, is more or less a decent foundation for a game of such natures, if that makes sense. Probably not, but the whole point is that Doom's story is relatively simple, and even the ending of the original Doom, where Doom Guy's pet rabbit Daisy gets mauled and it's up to him to avenge the death of his pet rabbit, which I'm pretty sure was just a dumb inside joke and nothing more, but yet you have people who want to overanalyze the fuck out of it as if it's a game theory. Oh wait, he retired. Whatever. People still do that shit anyway. Even before the man retired, but whatever. Doom lore is fucking stupid, alright? There are only very few games that actually have meaningful lore, and I'm not talking about story, Dark Souls. Get your fucking ass out of that seat. I ain't talking about you. Not yet anyway, but I'm going to explain in a second. The only games whose lore is actually meaningful is Diablo, Twisted Metal, and I'm going to give an olive branch to the Sons of Miyazaki, the Souls games. There's story and there's lore. There's a difference. I understand that there's lore in Dark Souls and that it's basically up to player interpretation, something that even the fandom doesn't understand. The gameplay is what keeps you entertained on Bizarro Day. And it ain't Leif Erikson Day, so I don't care. Some people might call it a bad thing, but if a game doesn't make you care about its lore, then why should you care to begin with? I understand there's a niche for enjoying the lore in Dark Souls, but its story is practically non-existent, and I'm sure its Dark Souls 4 counterpart Elden Ring is no better, and especially with Duskbloods and even Elden Ring Night Rain. I don't care, and I don't care how you feel about that. Yes, the Souls games have lore, they don't have story. Now shut up and let me continue. As for Diablo and Twisted Metal, they have lore that are actually interesting, even though Diablo has a bunch of codex entries you can read up, and Twisted Metal has backstories and character endings that tie a lot of shit together, and you don't even have to play Twisted Metal Black to understand the fact. It just has character backstories that make you interested, and even with Twisted Metal before it turned black, or even Twisted Metal Head On, or even Twisted Metal 2012, there's always a lot to investigate and all that shit, but unfortunately, the TV show might have ruined it for a lot of people, but at least it has better respect for Twisted Metal 3 and 4 than the so-called devs who made Siphon Filter and nothing else. I'm going to digress on that last part at least, because let's just say that TM Alliance isn't like anyone who actually has anything nice to say about that. Diablo is also one of the games that has a bunch of codex, whatever, fuck it, going with it, codex entries that helps establish the world, but even in Diablo 3, which I've been playing recently, it's not necessary to engage with it, though it does help establish the setting and lore and whatnot of the game. And I have to ask, who made it necessary to not only add this into Doom 2016, but made it mandatory reading just to understand the basic shit that goes on in Doom Eternal? There is no codex entry that explains why Samuel Hayden just all of a sudden turns to a fucking info dump, even though he had an actual purpose in Doom 2016. There is no codex entry that explains why Doomslayer just has a fucking space station and that Australia is the only part of the world that is barely affected by the demons that are on Earth or whatever. I don't care if Hugo Martin wants to use the rule of cool, even though there's plenty of other instances where it can be used much better while still keeping the established plot of modern Doom in check. The fact that the dude basically tried to mishmash everything together as if it's some shitty Marvel Cinematic Universe slop is fucking retarded, and I hate that people will defend it. And speaking of defending, I will give Doom 2016 an olive branch in that its cutscenes, quote-unquote, it reminds me of Half-Life in a way that doesn't take away from the character, and it does mostly focus on what made the story in Doom kind of relevant in a way. I still hate the gameplay. I still hate the linear level progression. I still hate the music that Mick Gordon made, but honestly, as I said, he should have gotten paid for his fucking work, and that's the end of that. He did his job. A lot of people liked it. I don't, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't get paid regardless of how I feel about it, but I guess it's a bad take regardless because I don't dare like the music that a lot of people are into. Get the fuck out of here with that dare shit, dude. The dude made music. He should have gotten paid. End of story. My opinion has no impact on a man who did a job and should be paid for doing his fucking job. Believe it or not, it was actually Soma Julius Cruz when he did a Let's Tolerate to Doom 2016, which finally gave me a kick in the ass to play Doom 2016 on PS4. Just a little fun fact, I actually bought the physical copy of Doom 2016
ass shot
because I really wanted to play it as intended, and then I ended up getting the game on PS4 for Christmas, and I was kind of hesitant on playing it, but 2016 in general was not a great year for me. I know I'm not talking about Doom, but whatever. But then, watching Soma reacting to DSP playing the game, it gave me a kick in the ass to play it, and then the rest is history. I think we all know what happened after that. DSP is kind of the alpha and omega in this specific autistic vortex of fucking me ranting about modern Doom for the longest time. And with Soma Julius Cruz doing Let's Tolerate, but then end up being a piece of shit like the man he claims to make money off from. And then the channel that's made to shit on both DSP and Soma while still defending Dark Souls as if it's this perfect fucking game. All the fucking planets aligned in an envious way for me to talk about Doom in this way is legitimately hilarious to me. However Doom 2016 is handled, that was Doom 2016. But with Doom Eternal having cutscenes that not only take away from the player's perspective, the fact that people still want to argue that shit, and they quote, from Doom World, the best form of all time, obviously. From what I have heard so far, there are not that many lengthy cutscenes, and also, you can skip them with a button press at any time. So if you do not care for them, just skip them. Problem solved. As far as not being able to tell what is going on, just shoot whatever stands in your way, and get through the levels, and you should be fine. I doubt there'll be mission briefings inside those cutscenes. There's just so much bullshit lore that was added in Doom Eternal that's not even funny. And I'm not going to get into the whole Markiplier references and shit. Yes, it sucks the dude's dad died, but that's another ordeal. I still think his videos are cringe, but I'm not going to even get into that other spectrum and shit because I don't want to derail this any further than I've already done. And I know that people are actually going to be defending this. Even Sean the Legend did in his latest video about remakes and remasters because apparently id Software is the only company other than Bethesda who's done nothing fucking wrong, even though it's the same fucking company in name only, who had a really shitty beta for Doom 2016 that was locked behind Wolfenstein The New Order. Then they had the bullshit with Doom Eternal and its kernel de novo shit, whatever the fuck. Then they have the whole... What the hell was it? They had the Bethesda account requirement to play Doom Eternal as a fucking whole, even though it is primarily a single-player game with a tacked-on multiplayer mode that you people get mad at any other fucking company, even Nintendo when they did that shit with Metroid Prime 2, but I'm not going to get into that because nobody wants to have that fucking discussion. This game is not going to have Mick Gordon as the composer, but some other dude whose name I don't know nor care to look up right now. And the fact that there are comparisons to Turok Evolution is why I've been using the game footage for this for the past while now, is because this game reminds me of a shittier Turok Evolution. It's a prequel, which DSP hates with a big fucking passion, but all I'm going to say about that shit is that if he somehow plays Metal Gear Solid 3, the remake, whatever, remaster, whatever the fuck, that's going to be some fucking hypocrisy, since even when he played it the first time, said it was pretty good or whatever, but obviously the footage speaks for itself, but not going to get into it. And that his boomeritis take has got people pissed off, even though he's not even the only person to have such a take, which, no, it's not just trying to be me being envious again. People actually do believe that Doom Eternal strayed away from Doom 2016, but then you had people saying that Doom 2016 strayed away from the other game. It's going to be like the Halo and Sonic cycle merged into some shitty anthropomorphic bunny, I guess, that goes fast, I guess. I don't really know what to make of this, to be honest. All I know is that Doom Dark Ages is just going to be a single-player only experience. Doom was never about the multiplayer. I'm not going to get into that fucking shit again because I don't want to get into trouble. And that it's id Software in name only. Clearly, it's not the people who worked there. I don't expect fucking John Romero and John Carmack to reunite to go back to id Software, but clearly the people who are working there now have different priorities compared to what they had back then, but whatever. It's just a fucking name brand that's sold to you for money and thinking it's the exact same fucking company as they were back in the 90s, which clearly it's not. And also, just to go on about one other thing, actually, before I end this little charade. Even the gods at id Software that initially formed had their own icon of sins. And I think this is something that people really, really need to understand. I'm going to name some examples. There's probably a lot more in there, but I'm just going to name a couple examples, alright? And I'm going to name, like, the really big ones. Not some stupid he said, she said shit, okay? John Carmack made Doom, okay? He essentially made the source code of Doom and all that shit. He's also responsible for why the Saturn port of Doom is probably the worst out there. Some people like to consider the 32X version of Doom to be shit just because of the music or whatever. Or that the Jaguar version is a good version because it's officially sponsored by id Software or some shit. John Carmack single-handedly ruined Doom on the Saturn because of his own ineptitude. And the fact that these so-called bigger channels who talk nothing about Doom don't acknowledge that is pretty bad. And John Romero himself, he's not exactly free of my wrath of needing to remind people. And no, I don't mean going on a witch hunt, canceling them via cancel culture style. It's just a lesson in history that should not be repeated, or else, well, we're going to be going through the Dark Ages. That was a fucking stupid-ass joke. The dude made Daikatana, okay? This game was hyped like Rise of the Robots, but for PCs, and it fucking sucks! Game is fucking terrible. I don't care if there was a Game Boy Color port that was never released or whatever. I don't care that there's a mod that makes the game fucking playable. Mods cannot save a game that will forever be ruined by a dude who had a little bit too much ego in his fucking head. That's why he's the final boss of Doom 2. It's an Easter egg, as the kids call it these days. And no, the Nintendo 64 port is not any better. Dark Lord Jada 1 told me exactly that. Years ago, mind you. And well, as for American McGee, yeah, he made the Alice games, which are pretty good. But you want to know what else he made?
You go to Jesus now.
Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And this was actually when Civi was good in my opinion, but I don't care to watch his shit anymore. There's also some other he said, she said with Sandy Peters or whatever, and people get a meme out of it whenever John Romero and Sandy Peters go into arguments or whatever, but even gods have masters, and these so-called gods have done shit in the past that may have fucked up the games at their time, but that doesn't mean that obviously you should cancel them. We can even go on about Doom 3 as a whole, but I so firmly believe the game stands on its own. And I could go on about a rant about how the game is called Doom 3, but it's technically a prequel or a reboot, whatever, but whatever. It can stand on its own even if it's not called Doom, but whatever. Machiavelli approved, don't you know? But in all seriousness, these so-called people who worked at id Software have done things that would not be acceptable by any standards. And the fact that these people who claim that id Software does nothing wrong, Doom on the Saturn being just a shittier version of Doom on PlayStation is not the comparison that the people think that it is. There is a lot more behind it. People just don't care to learn or read up on Wikipedia. All that lore and backstory aside, Doom the Dark Ages is going to be hell on earth again. I don't care that it's a fucking prequel. I do care that Hugo Martin is trying to change the narrative again for this fucking game series that he did not create. The dude should just suck to Jack X Combat Racing and sued Neil Cuckman for disrespecting his one good game in The Last of Us, Left Behind. A child's left behind, mind you. I'm going to go back to playing Doom as it was intended. Again. I'm going to go back to the Dark Ages.